Well, hello folks. Welcome to another Day Tripping with Ken, another Chicago edition. Today we are headed on a river tour on one of these boats down here. Now last year I took one of these, which was a lot of fun. It was just on the river and really focused on architecture. That was called the First Lady Tours, and it was absolutely wonderful. This time around though, we're taking one out that is going to start here on the river right there and then go out through the locks to Lake Michigan. Just head around, basically it's called Chicago Harbor, and then back in. Really looking forward to going through the locks because it's something I have never done before. Now I'm not going to narrate too much because there's going to be a narrator on board, and then I'm just going to get some nice shots and maybe add a little music to it. I don't want to interrupt too many people on the boat by me talking. I will a little bit, but we are really looking forward to this. So join us as we go on a Chicago River and Lake Michigan tour.
Well, everybody's still getting on the boat. Quickly, my name is Kay, like the letter. I'm very popular with kids under 5 because I am in the alphabet song. I'm famous. My name is Kay. I'm going to be your tour guide today, and we're going to learn about the architecture and history of the city of Chicago. Very happy to have all of you here. Couple quick housekeeping notes. First of all, there are washrooms downstairs, and of course that is the most common question we get. And to get downstairs, there's a stairwell in the back of the boat. There are stairways on either side of this structure, which is called the pilot house. That's where the captain is. So feel free to use them now. Feel free to use them when we're moving about the river, any old time. They're functional at any time. There's also underneath, kind of where I pace, a bar. It was built by a man named Alfred Altschuler, and it is an example that you have a kind of architecture, you'll hear me mention again, which is called French Beaux-Arts. Beaux-Arts is identifiable by, first of all, a lot of Greek and Roman themes, ornaments in the bottom, plain stacked floors, and then repeated ornaments at the top, which is an architectural style. But the reason I want to point out that site to you is that in 1803, we had our first military fort built there, which was Fort Dearborn. Now, if you're from Europe, this is very contemporary. If you're from Chicago, this is ancient history, everything being situational, right? So Fort Dearborn was built on that site. And then another piece of this story is that our first non-indigenous settler, who was a man named Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, it's about the extent of my French, by the way, had his cabin roughly over here on this spot. What was so magical about this spot that everybody kept stopping here? Why would you put your main fort in the middle of a river? It makes no strategic sense at all. Well, the simple answer to both of these questions is that this was not always the middle of a river. The river is natural. It has always been here. It stopped a little bit to the west, which is the direction we're about to go. What happened was Lake Michigan used to come all the way up to the bridge that's right behind us. So had this been prior to 1871, we would be on the beach right now, which is kind of weird to think, and this would be where the water line was. What happened was we had the Great Chicago Fire. In this particular case, great meaning gigantic, not great meaning good. And when the fire burned for 3 days, by the time it was finally extinguished, which by the way was by rain, and I'll tell you the whole story in detail later, we had lost 4 miles of our city. Do you ever watch TV and you see like the images of hurricanes or tornadoes having come through an area? Do you ever just think, okay, it's obviously tragic, but how did they clean up? Well, Chicago had the same problem, 1871 too, but everything was different. Conveniently for us, we had this huge lake right here. So what did they do? They shoved 4 miles of material out into the water. It was so much that it formed landfill, on which all the buildings on the other side of the bridge are now built. Essentially, they moved the lakefront to the east of Fulton. A Native American woman, apparently she was the brains behind the operation. She was a very strategic fur trader. They made a lot of money. He moved away in 1800, became a sea captain, and left the area, but he is considered the father of Chicago because they were the first couple to move here and settle here and not to have been born in the area. So very kind of all these little tendrils of stories, and there's a whole story behind them. Obviously, anybody that can read can do my job here. It is the Trump International Hotel and Towers. Certainly one of the more political hotspots in the city of Chicago, and honestly one of the most beautiful buildings in Chicago. Built in 2009, it was designed by Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. You will hear their name a lot throughout this tour. You see how it narrows in 3 spots. Those setbacks or terraces are not at arbitrary heights. Those heights match the roof lines of architecturally significant buildings next to the trunk. Now They're almost like arrows. It's a very cool, subtle feature. When you're out on the lake, you really notice what that does to the skyline. It just continues the line. One of the roof lines is actually where you got on the boat, the Wrigley Building. It matches one of the terrace heights. It's a little hard to tell from here, but it's exact. One of the other ones, we'll see the building in a couple minutes. But it's an interesting feature because it points to these buildings, and I find it fascinating. So this is how hotel and condominiums. There are restaurants and bars up there with fabulous views of the river. Very kind of exciting, really an exciting building. You know, images from Greek and Roman architecture. This is 6 colors of terracotta. It was the first building built on the river on the North Bank after the Chicago fire. Why is it made of terracotta? Because terracotta is not flammable. We are also famous for having the Chicago window. The big window with the flanked by 2 little windows. Those are very common in Chicago. It's literally called the Chicago window, the structure. So the hotel will cost you $1,000 and upwards of that a night. Above it, condominiums. You want to buy a condo here? Want to live in the St. Regis? It's going to cost you between about $8.5 million. That's a small 1-bedroom, and $25 million was the highest price I've seen of apartments available. You look up there, you'll notice 2 of the stories do not have glass in them. And again, I'm sorry to have you look backwards, but it's up there. That is the 83rd and 84th floors. And the reason for that is this. All of these buildings are subjected to very extreme weather. And not only is it windy here, but it's super windy at that altitude. And that building was not going to fare. They make models and then they put them into weather simulators. That building was not going to do real well in really high winds. By leaving those floors without glass, which was, by the way, a last-minute change when they built the building, it's like cutting a hole in a parade banner. Basically, it's just a way for the wind to go through the building and leave it, you know, less vulnerable. It's got a very technical term. The term for that, literally, a blow-through. So you got a super tall with a blow-through right there. You'll end up screaming, fire, fire, and throwing your hands up. It's very exciting when you're 5, but it is based on a lie. The truth is that we're not quite sure how the fire started. And how do we know that the story was made up? Because it was made up by a journalist who finally confessed. He'd been pressured by his boss to sell newspapers. He needed a cause. He's like, okay, I'll blame her. Whatever sparked it, there were fires all over the Midwest the same night. So something horrible. And it did change our city forever. So the good news is after a tragedy, sometimes something good happens. And what happened was we got to rebuild our city. That is why we're called the second city. We are the second Chicago built on the ashes of the first city. So that's how we got the name. We are now in the Chicago Lock, by the way. You'll see what will happen is we will stop here. And one of the gates is broken. I'm not quite sure how they're doing this today.
So I came down to the lower level here because we are going through the lock, as the narrator explained, one of the locks here in Chicago. She did say it's run by the federal government, not the city of Chicago. So first time I've ever been through a lock. You can see it opening here. That is so impressive, at least to me, because I've never seen anything like that before. Kind of looks like a dam breaking, but it's not. And what is going to happen, of course, is as the water flows in, the boat will rise to the level of the lake. So I'm not sure when the water equalizes. You can see sort of an indication on the wall over there, and you can see the 0 mark. So it could be when that hits 0, that's when the 2 bodies of water equalize and the gates fully open. We'll see. Haven't done this before. So that must be the case when it hits around 0, because as soon as it approached that, the gates are beginning to open wider. Now, the narrator said she had heard that one of the gates wasn't fully operating, but that looks to be like the left gate. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. The right gate is opening, and you can see now the Chicago River and Lake Michigan are equal in their level. And looking back over on that measuring,
can I drop your name?
That measuring mark over there, you can see that we're at 0.
Okay.
So that is it. Looks like we're about ready to move forward.
So we're going to pick up your
So the narrator was saying that once the gate fully opens, that the boat can proceed. There'll be a horn blast and we'll be ready to go out into the lake. And there it is. We are on our way. So it's a good view as we leave the Chicago River out to Lake Michigan, the end of Navy Pier. That is where they shoot fireworks off from during the summer on Wednesday and Saturday nights. We were over there last year when we were here, had a lot of fun. We didn't go on the large Ferris wheel over there, but we walked around, had some lunch. There's shops over there, and there's all kinds of different amusement activities. You can buy tickets for kind of an all-inclusive pass to do several things. A lot of fun. Definitely recommend going out there, especially in the evening. If you come out here, nice warm summer evening, be a wonderful place to walk during dusk as the sun starts to set. There's a hotel over there if you want to stay on Navy Pier. You can do so, and you can see also more river cruises and other tours go out from there. Also, you can get on water taxis over there, and you can see way over there across the way to the left, and those will go out onto the lake and then take you to the other end around where the Field Museum is and the Shedd Aquarium. We did do that last year, so we have been out on Lake Michigan before.
we have not talked about is the World's Fair of 1933, which was the Century of Progress Fair, known for Art Deco design. As we head up the river, if you can see on the right a building off in the distance with a yellow dome. People ask me about that building. It's really little. It's right between the construction and the shiny building. That is the Hotel Intercontinental. It used to be the Medina Men's Club. It's really funny. This is how they kind of swear. My dad was the gentlest, mildest, most wonderful man until the bridges. And he used to relate for everything because there was only one person running all the bridges. They would raise him, run to the next street, introduce the building, and he wanted with us. So he was there, two times going after that. And if you want to do glass down here, there was the only thought it was big tribute to the Golden Bridge. No necessary. On the right hand, I think it would be like a 3,000. And the right hand side of the boat, we have an Art Deco building in the top of the here. Everything is glass. Behind it, the Chicago Tribune building. One of the buildings that it points to is right there, black building, red building. It's the American Medical Association building. The British Michael Hotel on the lower floor. It was designed by this man, It was built in 1972, and the last office was built before Chicago. The most iconic towers in Chicago, Marina Towers, the two corn cobs. Now those buildings were built by Bertram Goldberg in 1964. And you know, we now assume the fact that we have either a bodega or a Starbucks or something in our lower floors. That was the first mixed-use towers in Chicago. Previous to this, buildings were either residential or business. Marina down below, they can have boats. We'll give parking up above. You can see the parking is the first floors of the building. We'll give them a grocery store, dry cleaners, gyms. We'll put an ice skating rink in. It was a huge deal during my lifetime to come ice skating as a kid at Marina City. They had a bowling alley. Bowling alley is still there. They actually had movie theaters. Movie theaters now turned to the House of Blues. So the idea was that everything you needed for your whole life was in there. You would have had a river lined with warehouses. Why? Because this river afforded you transportation and a place to dump your trash, as I mentioned earlier. This is the Reed Murdoch Center. It's designed by a man named George Nimmons in 1914. So it was originally a store, like there's a warehouse for the Monarch Food Company. Now there's corporate offices from Whirlpool. We have the Chicago Merchandise Mart. This building was completed in 1932, designed by Graham Anderson Probst and White. It is an iconic Art Deco building. It was originally built for the Marshall Field retail stores. Marshall Field wanted to combine 17 warehouses into one. This was the result. By square footage, this is the largest building in the world until the Pentagon was built. It's over 2 complete square blocks. It's got over 40 miles of hallways. It used to have its own zip code, 60654. On the right-hand side of the boat, that gray box is a projector. Every night of the summer, from Thursday through Sunday, there is a show projected on the Merchandise Mart. It becomes a screen. It is called Art on the Mart. It is designed by the students at the Art Institute of Chicago. Animation and video, kind of a wacky show. Point is about 2 o'clock. That is called the Carbon and Carbide Building. It is now home to the Pendry Hotel. The building was built in 1929 by the Burnham brothers. It was also prohibition. Drinking of alcohol was illegal. The Burnham brothers were not happy about prohibition at the top. On the right, 77 West Wacker by Ricardo Bofill, one of the only Spanish architects represented on the river. That is called a neoclassical design. You see the classical images like the Parthenon. Ornate buildings called the Jewelers Building. Again, French Beaux-Arts. The little domes on the corners are called Tempagnetti. The big dome is called the Belvedere. These little houses, these are all bridge houses. They have the gears and the works for the bridges. Oldest bridge is from 1915. And then they get newer and newer, but they're pretty old, most of them. We fix 2 bridges a year. And the thing is, they're perfect for urban areas because they open and close quickly.
Well, I have to tell you, that tour was absolutely fantastic. I told you last year I took one that was on the First Lady, and that one focused more on architecture. It was actually done by a docent from the Architectural Society of Chicago. Highly recommend that one. That one stays mainly on the river, goes down the different forks of the river. That was excellent. The one we did today was just so much fun. As I said, this time we got to go out onto Lake Michigan. Really, we stayed in Chicago Harbor, but we got to go through the locks. That was a whole lot of fun. So when you're visiting Chicago and you have the time, whether you're coming here like we did to drop your kid off to college, or coming here on business, or this is your vacation spot, highly recommend taking one of these river tours. There's different companies that do these. This was Wendell, that the one we went on, or just Chicago Architecture and River Cruises. The First Lady is another one that we took last year. You can search those online. They usually range, I would say, from about $45 to maybe $60, depending on the length of the cruise. Well worth it. And depending on what time of the year you're coming here, I don't know if they operate year-round, so in the dead of winter, if they do, I'm really not sure, or if it's weather permitting. So definitely check that out. But it was a lot of fun, and really hope you enjoyed coming along with us. Once again, I appreciate you all watching, and see you next time.